Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the class. How are you all? Okay. We were discussing the last concept. It's about natural vegetation and wildlife. And as you know, we have 5 concepts to discuss in this class. One is about land, soil, water, and natural vegetation and wildlife. So we are last concept we are discussing together: natural vegetation and wildlife. You know what is natural vegetation? What do you mean by natural vegetation? What is natural vegetation? Yes, it's a group of plant which grows in a particular place. It's called as a group of plant. It's a vegetation. Natural vegetation, like that group of plant which is not helped by the human beings, means which is grown naturally without the help of a human being, without the intervention of a human beings, without the influence of human beings. It's called as natural vegetation. There, in the last class, we discussed the uses of natural vegetation. Chapter number 2. The natural vegetation and wildlife we are discussing. And we discussed the uses of wildlife and both the natural vegetation. Now we'll go to the next sub-concept in this main concept, natural vegetation and wildlife. We have 3 about the one we discussed. Now we are left with the 2 more sub-concepts here to discuss. One is about distribution of natural vegetation. Distribution of natural vegetation. So, you know the distribution, the spread of this natural vegetation. On the earth surface, we get to see the different types of natural vegetation. Suppose it's an earth. On the earth surface, we have 3 climatic zone or heat zone. Is it not? One is about torrid zone. It's a torrid zone, is it not? And here we have temperate zone and it's a frigid zone. These are the divisions, heat zones. We call it as a heat zones of earth. Here we made this like we got these heat zones on the earth surface based on the temperature, the place which receives a different temperature. Based on that, we have divided that into 3 areas or 3 zones. These areas that receives high temperature, it's called as torrid zone. This torrid zone that receives high temperature because the direct sunlight which falls on this area throughout the year. And here it's a temperate zone. This area which receives the slant sunrise there. For a 6 months that it receives direct sunlight, and next 6 months it will not receives the direct sunlight. This slant sunlight will be fall on this area because our earth is tilted towards 23.5 degree. It is tilted towards the left, means east direction. So that reason the sunlight will not fall directly on these 2 things, 2 zones every day in the year. So that's the reason this receives somewhat moderate temperature. This receives high temperature, and this like a frigid zone. This receives means the frigid zone will prevail with a very low temperature. For a 6 month, this zone will not be receiving any sunlight. After 6 months, that receives continuous sunlight, so it will be having very low temperature. So you know, for the growth of plants, basically for the growth of plants, it requires the basic needs as like a humans. For us, what are the basic needs? Yes, air, water, land, food. These are the basic needs. Shelter, nowadays the shelter is also basic needs for us. Same like that, for the growth of a plant, the basic needs is like a land, water, sunlight, temperature, sunlight, land, water and the wind. These are the basic needs for that. So here the main thing is about the sunlight. Why? Because that creates a food in the sunlight. Like we call it as a photosynthesis. You know about that. So it is required. The sunlight is very much important factor for this growth of a plant. So here we get to see the different growth of plants over here in this zone. Why? What's the reason? Because this zone receives high temperature throughout the year. Throughout the year it will be having high temperature, so that reason the whatever the plants which grows here in this zone will be having a taller in height and having greenery leaves, and that grows more here. The more plants or more trees can be seen here. It's called as a forest. And as we go towards this zone, in the temperate zone, since it don't receive highest temperature, means like a direct sunlight will not be fall on these zones. So that reason the plants which grows here, plants and trees, will be different, and the total area here it's not be covered. It will not be covered by the growth of plants as like here, and totally we get remain here. Means we don't have much growth of plants over here. So based on this, we have a distribution. So this natural vegetation are distributed based on all these things. So based on temperature and moisture, the trees thrives means grow. Thrive is nothing but grow, the growth of the trees. The trees thrives differently. Okay. So based on the temperature and moisture, according to that, the areas which receives high temperature, suppose there is an area that receives high temperature and will be having more moisture. There in that places, the trees that thrives means that grows very well in according to that area which receives highest temperature and which gets more water availability. Because suppose we have 3 divisions in the 8 zones. We have divided it as 8 zones. This zone that receives highest temperature, because that will be faced towards the sun directly. So these areas that receives sunlight directly, then this, because basically our earth is tilted towards 23.5 degree towards this direction. So here this zone throughout the year that receives highest temperature. There we can see the trees which grows with trees healthy, because that receives more temperature. With the help of a sunlight that can prepare its food, it's called as a photosynthesis, well, is it not? So based on this, based on the temperature and moisture, we have a distribution, different, like a natural vegetation are distributed differently over the earth's surface. We have a types in there. Forest, grasslands, and shrubs, and tundra vegetations. These are the 4 divisions, different types of natural vegetations where we can find on the earth's surface. These all the groups of vegetations, like vegetation, we discussed about that. It's a group of plants. Natural vegetation, this group of plants which grows naturally without the help of human beings. Interference of human beings, it's called natural vegetation. These are all natural vegetations. So this forest, this grows in the areas which receives high temperature, and the trees which grows in this, it will be having more dense, and will not be having a much gap in between the 2 trees or many trees. So that's sort of forest. We'll discuss deeply about that. Briefly, I'm explaining about this. So grasslands here, the height of a trees over here is somewhat averagely 2 meters, 1 meter of trees which grows here in the grassland. And the shrubs is like thorny bushes, mullu gidagal we say. So here this trees here only it's found in the arid land, means the land which receives very low temperature, very high temperature and low rainfall. There we can find these shrubs, thorny bushes. Then these tundra vegetations, like these vegetations, it grows in the regions which receives very low temperature, like in the peak of Himalayan mountain ranges, in Russia, in a green land, there we can find these thunder vegetations, because the trees which grows here that adjust to the climate which gets there, means low temperature climate. So these are the some types what we have on the earth's surface. So for a better understanding, let me draw the picture. So here we have heat zones, 3 heat zones. It's called a torrid zone, temperate zone. These both are temperate zone, and we have a torrid zone in the North Pole and South Pole. The mainly these trees are found here in these torrid zones, the trees. Then the grasslands are found somewhat near of this Tropic of Capricorn and Tropic of Cancer. And shrubs somewhat as it goes towards northern pole, southern pole, we can see these tundra vegetations. And finally we will get the tundra vegetations over in this both pole, north pole and south pole. So this distribution of natural vegetation is based on the availability of temperature and the moisture. So our earth is not a flat surface, it's not having a flat surface, it's the spherical in the size, spherical in the size, it's called as, mainly it's called as geoid. Geoid in the space, like a size, so based on that, the sunlight will not fall directly or equally to the every places or every areas on the earth's surface. So that reason we can find the difference in these natural vegetations. So about forest, we will go somewhat deeply. Here, this group of trees which grows is like basically the group of trees that grows well in the areas which uses high temperature. So it has a link to the availability of water. How? Suppose this area which uses high temperature, then that supports to growth of plants. When the plant grows higher, means then the elevation of our trees that much more, then that supports to get a having precipitation over here. We will get a rainfall because of this height of our trees and plants. In the plants, how the water molecules from the leaves of plants will be evaporated to the atmosphere. From there, and after condensation, we will get a precipitation. So it helps indirectly and directly. It helps to get a rainfall over here. So this temperature, it's a main reason to get a abundant rainfall in the areas which is high temperature. So that reason, the forest, like the trees or plants that grows in the areas which receives high temperature, the trees thrives or otherwise grows well in the areas which receives high temperature and more water available. It's called as a forest. So the dense of these trees will be more. It will be having density, it will be connected. We can find the trees nearby many other trees, and will not be having much gap like this. Shrubs. If you find one plant over here, you can get to see the other plants which is somewhat away from this, like a 3 meter, 1 meter. But here in the trees, like in the forest, and it will be adjacent, it will be connected with each other. And from the bottom towards the top, around towards 50 meters, it will be completely covered by the vegetations in the trees. In the forest, sorry. Trees are dense here. So, right now about this forest, and we will go to discuss about the grasslands, shrubs, and the tundra vegetations. Make it fast. Trees are dense, means like it grows near of every other trees, because it receives high temperature that can create prepare that spoon food, and it will get a water, and as well as when the high temperature, when the soil gets high temperature and water, automatically it gets a humus in it. So it supports for the good growth of plants, even the humus and the temperature, the rainfall, everything. So that reason we'll get to see the more plants and trees which grows in these areas. And the plant of means height of or elevation of the plants will be more high in the forest. So these are found in a tropical region. Mainly these forests are found in tropical region. Tropical region like a torrid zone. We call we have a division of earth surface two types. One is the places, based on the places which receives different temperature, and based on the places which is having different physiological and based on the areas like regions. One is tropical, subtropical and polar region. We have 3 regions, and based on the temperature we have torrid zone, temperate zone and frigid zone. So I am going very fast because we discussed about this in the 7th class. There is no need of repeating again. It's like killing my time. Come to this. Is that all? Okay, we'll go for next grassland and shrubs. Grassland, you know, the land, like a vast area which is covered, occupied by the grasses. Grassland. So here we can get to see this grassland in other countries, like in foreign countries, like in North America, and then in the Australia, the Africa and Asia there, because these areas that lies in this subtropical area, that means in a temperate areas like a temperate zone. So that's the reason the places that receives high temperature means like moderate temperature and low rainfall. So both low rainfall sometimes moderate rainfall. So that areas like and it's a tropical region. Here we can see the forest. The forests are found here because of high temperature and the rainfall and everything is suitable for the growth of good crops there. And the trees. So the reason we can say the more natural vegetations. And apart from that, we have here subtropical region, otherwise temperate zone. Here we can find these grasslands. So because these areas that receives moderate rainfall and moderate temperature. So based on the temperature, moisture and the rainfall, we will get to see the different types of vegetations. That's about this like a grassland. We can see most areas of a grassland in other countries. Why not in India? Because the India of landmass of India that lies in the tropical region, not in the and of it lies in the subtropical regions. So the vast area of the region. And this grass that changes when the so here based on the temperature and moisture, the area which receives the area which receives different temperature and moisture, based on that the growth of grasses will be vary. So it decreases like a cover of a grass. Area by area as the moisture decreases. Suppose as you go towards the northern direction from this tropical region, and otherwise as you go towards the southern direction from this tropical region, the moisture availability will be decreases. It decreases gradually. So based on that area which receives the different moistures, we can see the different area difference in the area which covers the grasslands. It decreases. Suppose here and we have more cover of grasses. In the most of the areas, it's filled with the grass cover. And as we go towards this northern direction, it may decreases because of the moisture. Our relative moisture and the temperature, it decreases towards the north. Otherwise in the south, because it will be having a very low temperature. Then the shrubs, otherwise shrubs. So these are found in the areas which receives very low rainfall and high temperature. The humus will be low in this soil. Humus content will be low because of no rainfall. We will not be having much rainfall, the water availability, moisture will be less, so that reason automatically the humus will decrease. So that only supports the soil which has less humus, less fertility, that only supports the growth of these shrubs, scrubs and bushes. So these are found in arid land. Arid means dry land. Arid is nothing but dry. This growth of plants are found in the arid land, dry land, and like places which receives very low rainfall and very high temperature. And like here in the North Karnataka also we have some areas which has this cover of scrubs and bushes. And when you come to the Gudaguda, there in the areas of Gudaguda, there we have some areas, some land which is of these scrubs, means which is covered of the scrubs and the thorny bushes. Because there in the Gudaguda areas that receives high temperature and rainfall availability will be less there. Annually, I'm saying about annually. Annually, the availability of water is less due to having lack of precipitation. For that reason, we'll get to see the scrubs and bushes there in the Gudaguda. That's about scrubs. Then tundra vegetation. It's not tundra, it's tundra. We'll be pronouncing it as a tundra. It's not tundra. So these trees, like these are found in the areas which receives very low temperature and moderate precipitation. Precipitation it may be in the different forms. Precipitation refers, it's not only the rainfall. You'll get a fog, mist, snow, it's all the forms of these precipitations. So like in Himalayan mountain ranges, we found we get these tundra vegetations. Like we are well aware about these. Christmas tree, this one. It's a Christmas tree. So this Christmas, we say it is a Christmas tree. Actually, it's a coniferous tree. This coniferous tree is found in a peak of Himalayan mountain ranges and in the areas which receives very low temperature and high precipitation. There it is found. This type of trees. This because these trees and the leaves of these trees that adjust with a very low temperature, low sunlight, and the leaves will be adjusted with these climatic conditions. So that reason it is found in these tundra vegetations. So these are the distribution of natural vegetations what we have. Right on, we'll go for next one. Right on. Is it clear? Make it fast. So the forest in among these four natural vegetation, distribution of natural vegetation. What are those? Forest, grassland, scrubs and tundra vegetations. These are the four distribution of natural vegetation. In among these four, which of these types of natural vegetation has covered more percent of land surface? Which has covered more on the surface of earth, on the surface of earth? Which among these is covered more areas? Is that forest, grassland, scrubs or tundra vegetation? What is that? Yes, forest. Forest has covered more land surface than any other because most of the lands that lies in the temperate zone. Most of the land is like on earth surface we have 30% of land which is covered, is not? So in among this 30% of land, most of the land mass which is lied in this tropical region. For example, suppose it's a globe and here we have Asia and the Europe and Africa, then we have South America, North America, Australia, Antarctica. So is it wrong? So here it's equator and Tropic of Cancer, Tropic of Capricorn, Arctic Circle and Antarctic Circle. So here in among these divisions of a tree according to the heat means the temperature which reaches. Which among these zones which has more land mass in it? Yes, it's a temperate zone. Here we have this land mass. In the temperate zone we have more land mass. This all a temperate zone. This is not the more land mass that lies in the temperate zone. So that's the reason. This more land, like the land mass which lies in this temperate zone that receives high temperature, it will be having a rainfall availability, means the water availability and the good moisture and the humus content and fertility of soil will be there. That supports for the growth of plants and the trees. So which among the four classification of natural vegetations are found here? ಈ ನಾಲ್ಕು ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ಸ್ ಏನು ಡಿಸ್ಕಸ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಲ್ಲ, ಈ ನಾಲ್ಕು ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಫಿಕೇಶನ್ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ವೆಜಿಟೇಷನ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾಲ್ಕರಲ್ಲಿ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬೆಳೀತಕ್ಕಂತಹ ಈ ಡಿಸ್ಟ್ರಿಬ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಯಾವುದು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ನ್ಯಾಚುರಲ್ ವೆಜಿಟೇಷನ್ ಯಾವುದು? ಎಸ್, ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಅ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್. ಯು ಕ್ಯಾನ್ ಗೆಟ್ ಟು ಫೈಂಡ್ ದಿಸ್ ಫಾರೆಸ್ಟ್ grows in this torrid zone because that is its highest temperature. Here, so in among these four, the forest is a one which has more land cover. So in among this, even in this also we have two types. In the forest we have two mainly. There are many actually, based on their character, based on their height, and based on their different types of trees which grows that area. It has a different types and divisions we have. But in the forest we have two mainly divisions. We have two divisions in the forest. One is evergreen forest. Evergreen forest. Then deciduous forest. These are the two types of forest. Mainly, basically, they have the two types of forest. One is evergreen forest and deciduous. This word itself that gives a meaning. Evergreen. The trees, trees which grows in these areas will be always green. Means the leaves of the trees will be greenery throughout the year. Both these types of forests are found in temperate zone and frigid zone. Is that right? Both forest types are found in temperate zone, otherwise frigid zone in the pole, northern pole, southern pole. Is that right? No. Yes, it is found in a torrid zone. tropical area. This all are for this both the forests are found in the tropical region, and some part of these deciduous also found in the subtropical region. And not every, but some part of our deciduous forest are found in the subtropical as well as in the tropical region. So the trees in this forest, like evergreen forest, will be greenery throughout the year. The leaves of these trees are green throughout the year. It does not shed their leaves in particular season. It's a dense forest. It grows to more height. Here, the trees which grows in the evergreen forest are greenery throughout the year. It's the main point. So it's called as evergreen forest. The trees, leaves of these trees are greenery throughout the year. But here in the deciduous forest will not be. The leaves of this forest will not be. The leaves of these trees in this forest will not be green throughout the year. Will not be green throughout the year. Leaves of this forest. Sorry, will not be. The leaves will not be green throughout the year, and it does not shed their leaves. It don't shed their leaves. The main character or features of this forest is that it sheds their leaves. So deciduous, the word itself says deciduous means shedding their leaves. So here this forest that sheds their leaves in a particular season. Sheds their leaves in particular season. So that reason the trees or leaves of these trees in this deciduous forest will not be greenery throughout the year, because in one season it sheds their leaves, but not like here in the evergreen forest. The leaves will be greenery throughout the year, because that doesn't sheds their leaves in any season. Okay. So then it's a dense forest. The green in the evergreen forest it's a dense, but it's not a dense. It's not a dense forest, and we'll be having like area differences, like it grows somewhat away from another trees in this deciduous forest. And in the evergreen forest, from the bottom towards the canopy, what you call somewhat height of 30 meters or 40 meters up to the 50 meters, from the bottom, like from the surface to the 50 meters of height, it will be completely covered by the vegetations. From the bottoms you can see the shrubs, bushes and the trees and some plants, and then our big trees in this evergreen forest, but not like here in the deciduous forest. You will get to see only the trees, and you will not be having a much plants, and the grasses will be there and the trees, and we can see the forest clear. And if some person is standing somewhat away 100 meters in this forest, you can see him, but not here in the evergreen forest. You cannot see the person who is standing after 4 meters or 5 meters. So because it is very dense, and it grows more height, and the trees in this forest that grows less height, because this forest somewhat that lies in a temperate zone, and this forest that receives less rainfall, and the water availability will be less in this deciduous forest. But here in the evergreen forest, the water availability will be more and high temperature. That receives high temperature because these forests are found it's there in the areas which is high temperature, like torrid region. in the torrid region. These are found in the temperate region. So these are the two important types of a forest. So it's the less main and it's not a dense and the less height. So here in the forest we have our four divisions or four distributions or four types of natural vegetations: forest, grassland, scrubs and the vegetations. But now we are discussing only about the forest because comparing with this forest, these are not much important, but because it's not having much areas covered. But the forest has covered more area. That's the reason we have two divisions in under this. One is evergreen forest and deciduous forest. So right on this, we'll go for the next concept. So we'll go for the next concept in the next class. And that's what for this class. We discuss about distribution of natural vegetation. Now next we'll go for conservation of natural vegetation. And we discussed about this topic. Today we discuss about this topic. It's about distribution of natural vegetation. Right on? And we have one more last concept of this chapter. It's about conservation and the preservation of natural vegetation and wildlife. You may ask why sir we didn't discuss about distribution of wildlife. So wildlife are found in this every natural vegetations like forest. The different types of wildlife are found there, and in the scrubs there are different types of wildlife also found, and the thunder vegetation scrubs and the grasslands. So it's interlinked. Both the natural vegetation and the wildlife is having close connection with each other. And you know this natural vegetation is like renewable resources, renewable natural resources, but we need to have a judicial use of this. If you don't have a judicial uses, or if you are utilizing this continuously without discriminations, you may face a problem in the future. Is it over?